Okay guys, I'm gonna show you the cranial nerves. I can actually see all of the cranial nerves on this dissection now that I've removed very carefully as much Duramater as possible. So I'm gonna start here at the frontal poles, and there's this white, kind of weird looking floppy stuff. Those are actually the remnants of the olfactory bulbs leading into the olfactory tracts. So they would be coming back here to form the olfactory tracts. These are much, much larger in the sheep than they are in humans. In humans, the frontal lobe would be much larger, and these structures would be much smaller relative to the size of that lobe. So this is cranial nerve 1, olfactory, which is for smell. Here is cranial nerve 2. You can see that it crosses here at the chiasm. So cranial nerve 2 is optic. Optic chiasm is where they cross. These nerves got kind of severed in the process, but that's okay. And then as they come back here and here, that would be the optic tract. Immediately posterior or caudal to the optic chiasm is the infundibulum. So this little dark patch right here is the area where the pituitary gland was attached, and immediately caudal to that is the mammillary body. So this entire region is representative of the hypothalamus, which is part of the diencephalon. So cranial nerve 1, cranial nerve 2, mammillary bodies. If I go caudal and a little bit lateral to that, I can see cranial nerve 3, which is intact very, very nicely here. And this is my oculomotor nerve. Remember that cranial nerve 4 is the smallest cranial nerve, and it's the only one that comes around from the dorsal aspect. So here's cranial nerve 4. Back here, there's a lot of blood. So this white little nerve that sits across all that black-looking blood is very, very nice. It's on this side as well. Cranial nerve 4, trochlear. Cranial nerve 5. So this is my pons. These two bumps right here are basically representing my pons. Now cranial nerve 5 got severed pretty nicely, so you can't really see it, but it's this kind of chunk of stuff right here on either side of the pons, right before you get to the cerebellum. Cranial nerve 6 is abducens nerve, and it's sitting right over the pons. This big chunk down here is my medulla oblongata. So if I look for 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, I'm going to go laterally. So if I pull this kind of laterally, 7, 8, and 9 are all of these little fibers that are kind of hanging out together. We can't distinguish those. This big guy right here, however, is cranial nerve 10, vagus nerve. Cranial nerve 11 is formed by some of the fibers down in this region, closer coming off the actual side of the spinal cord and moving its way up. And then cranial nerve 12, remember, is between the olives and the pyramids, which are not very distinct structures on this particular brain. But what I've done is, from a posterior aspect, I've taken my sharp probe and my scissors, and I've kind of lifted up this stuff. This is the arachnoid mater, and I dissected that away. And as I did that on this side, I could pull out these little fibers. These little fibers are making up my cranial nerve 12, hypoglossal. And that's the cranial nerves.